I think this looks just beautiful. This reminds me of the glaciers in our mountains here. These blues and the grays and just the beautiful colors. I will meet you back once I've completed this row. Before I continue on, one thing I should let you know though is with these blue beads up here, don't pull really crazy tight because you'll just start warping the gray beads down below. So, all right, just coming down the rest of the corner here, and should be done in a moment. Now, the other thing that I can do here, and it just depends, it's a design decision, so to speak, is maybe I want to add some 15s on top of this now too. So we'll just see. I'll just see how I think that's going to look. Excuse my fingers in the way here. So I think I've got space for, yeah, just one more bead, which is great. But I may decide that I want to put on some size 15s here too. Let me just see. Yeah, I think I can do one more bead in there. Well, let me just pack that in first and see if it's going to crowd things out or not. No, I think that'll fit. So the same deal goes here. It's a good idea to, once again, run your needle through everybody, just to stabilize that top. And this time you can snug it up a little bit, because this time we're just pulling forward rather than pulling from underneath. Now we're just kind of squaring everything up a little bit and making it a little bit more firm. So I'll finish this up off camera, and then I will see if I want to do the size 15s on top of that, which I think I may. We'll just see. Okay, so let's try some 15s and see if we can get those to work. Only trouble with my little size 11 here is some of these beads are pretty tiny and they don't always go through, so sometimes I may have to switch to a different needle. All right, you know, I really like that. I like that. I think that borders it beautifully, but it's the same deal. I'm going to go all the way down the side of the stone and come out the back. I think that looks beautiful. So I will continue doing that, and it's the absolute exact same way that I did the 11s. Okay, I'm going to go all the way around my border and I will be right back. It's all good. Now I was really looking at putting these around as a border, but you know, I'm not going to, because I think they'll cover up this gray, and I have never done like anything in grays and blues before. So I kind of figured that it would be a good idea to just leave it like that. So the next thing I want to do now is I'm going to come over to the back, and I'm going to catch some of those threads there. Hopefully that was in frame there. I'm just going to catch some of those threads and go through my thread loop here and just pull. I'm actually going to put on a new piece of thread. And normally I try to make it long enough that I don't have to cut this off. But either way, it really is not important. It doesn't matter if you have to cut it off or not. Oops, forgot to go through that. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to burn this guy off. All right, so that's burned down pretty good. Now the next step is I'm gonna have to cut this out. And because I have used a white or white-ish thread or crystal thread on the back, makes it a little bit easier for me to see where I'm going to cut out. So what I will do is I'll sort of do a little bit of a rough cutout first. I want to be very, very, very careful. Just as I said on my Métis flower, tutorial that I don't cut the thread underneath, or that's a case for wanting to cry a little bit or a lot or whatever. You don't want to be cutting that thread. So now I can come in here and just sort of trim this off a little bit and stay somewhat equal with those beads. I can neaten this all up. Now I don't want to cut away so much that I have nothing to sew into afterwards. But I do need to cut away so that I'm not having to cover up a ton of this stuff. All right, so I'm gonna just trim that one a tiny bit more. There we go. So I've trimmed that down nicely. And now I'm gonna get some beads out of my way. I'm gonna clean things up, and then I'm gonna cut out a little piece of hide. So I'll be right back. So I changed out my wire guardian and my earrings in my 15s for some silver. I just thought it would go a lot nicer with the grays and the darker blues, so I changed that out. I also changed over to my black KO thread. Because I'm going to do, I'll show you brick stitch just to attach this to the earring as well. And then I'm also going to use this for fringing. And Fireline and Wildfire, just, they don't work very nicely for that. So I'm going to just put a little dab of glue. Let's move that out of the way. I still need to make sure I'm in frame here, sorry. I'm going to put a really small dab of glue on here. And again, I don't really need an awful lot. There's very little that I have to use, because once again, essentially I'm just going to be really sewing everything together here, so I don't have to worry too much about that. I've got a little bit of white thread here that needs to get tucked in, and then I'm going to just put, whoops, I'm just going to put this down sort of onto there, and I'm going to just press it down. Now I'm going to also, the other thing I should do is I'm going to bring my I've knotted my KO thread here, and I'm going to just bring my my knot up through the back here. In fact, yeah, I think that's what I'll do, is I'll just bring it up through there so I can hide my knot inside there. Now I am going to let this dry just for a couple of minutes, and when it's dry enough I'll be right back and I will show you the rest of the steps. Okay, so just a couple of minutes. I don't have to worry too much. The reason I wanted this one to dry a little bit more is because I'm also going to be cutting around here too. So I'm going to do that. I want to pull on my thread here and make sure that it's not going to get cut by accident. Okay, so now I'm going to bring my needle to the back of the hide here. And one of the things that I need to decide, I need to choose, is where is my fringing on this going to go. Okay, so let me pull my little decorative guys in. And we're done with the 15s now. And so when I start brick stitch, I always start with 2, but because I'm going to add the little decorative edge, I'm going to have 3 beads here. So I'll pick up an 8, an 11, and an 8. And then I will just come through both the black felt and the hide. And I will pull. Now I'm going to come up the bottom of the gray bead of the size 8. I'm just going to come up that bottom and pull those guys kind of tight together. Now I'm going to go through the blue and then I'm going to come down this very first gray bead here like that. Not through the hide or anything else, I'm just coming through the bead. Okay, and I'm going to pull, and now I'm going to come back up through this second gray bead. And what that will do is help them sit a little bit less wonky. Of course, when I add the very last bead on, it will help immensely. I'm just going to give that a little tug and make sure they're sitting right down on top of that hide. Okay. So now I only have to pick up the main bead and the accent bead all the way along. So I'm going to pick up one accent bead and one of my gray beads, and I'm going to go about a bead's width away. I'm going to come through the felt and the hide both at the same time, and I'm going to show you the back here after I've done a few stitches, because you'll see how cool it is that even though I'm using black thread and I've got this hide, it actually hides in the hide quite well. And you can see there's really not an awful lot that you can see there. One last time, and then I'm gonna go until I want to get to my fringe edge. So through the felt and the hide, pull tight, hold on to my thread, come up through the bottom of that gray bead and pull. So I'm going to go all the way around until I'm going to make this edge my my fringe edge, just because I'll end here and then it won't be too long of a distance for me to get across. But very lovely. Okay, I will finish that off and I'll be right back. So I had a little design change here. I was not loving how the 11s looked on the outside edge. I kind of felt it made the earring look a bit too big and bulky, and it's already a pretty big earring, pretty much approaching pendant size really, but somebody might like this. So if you're finding this too big and bulky, the size 8s, you can go down to a size 11 and then use the 15s. But I decided to stay with the size 8s and use the 15s as my, my little extra pieces. So now along the bottom here, I'm just going to be putting the size 8s, and so I've already loaded one onto my string here. It's the same process, it's no different. So I've picked up my bead, I'm going to go through my backing. Make sure I'm very mindful of the little tangles that might inevitably cross my path, which they do, and just gently pull them out. And then up we go. And really that's all we're doing. It's the exact same thing. We're just not adding the 15 on these ones, just because we want to use these for the fringing that we will eventually get to. So I'm going to finish this off. Once I get here to connect up, I will bring you back. I've more or less come to the end here. And it really looks like this gap is big enough that I can put another bead in there, but it actually isn't. If I lay this other bead down here, I actually can't really squish another bead in there. So I've picked up just my little blue bead, and I'm going to go down this very first one that I had put on, and I'm going to pull, 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 and then back up this one. Now I could possibly put another bead in there if it was smaller, but I will crowd my beads if I do that. So, but you see, if I can pull these really close together, you see how they actually just butt up against each other quite nicely. So that's what I'm wanting to do. All right, so I'm going to go back and forth through these a little bit. And now I can come out over here and I can get my fringing done. So I'll come back up this one. There we go. Now, because I need to be coming out this one, and I want to work with 7. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've got an odd number there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath this sort of bridge thread here between the beads. So I can catch my thread on that. And I can go back down this one here. And then I can come up and out the one that I want. And now I am ready to do some fringing. So in this case, I have the opportunity to sort of leave it as it is if I wish. And honestly, this really, really is better off as a pendant. And that's what it's going to end up being, I think. But I will show you how to make this into a pair of earrings as well. It's just that it really is going to be a large earring if I try to turn it into earrings. But I'll show you the process anyway. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to start to do my fringing on here. And so I think I'll probably, well, we'll just move the gray ones out of the way. If I choose to use them, I will. And this is where you get to be a little bit creative and play around a little bit and decide what you want to do. And so I'll pull out my 11s again. And I've got a couple of different blues there. And now I think I might even add a little bit of my silver in there because using this ear guardian, I will be making that part of my design with these little silver 15s. So just give me a second to untangle my KO. All right, so you have seen me do this before too. This is nothing new at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide, I'm going to decide how big do I want my fringe. So what I'm going to do is let's put on one of these guys. And then I can put on 5 silver. And then I like to often do a little bit of a different pattern in the center. So I'll pick up 2 of these guys. One of the size 11s. 2 of these guys. Slide that down, see if I like the look of that. And I think I do. And then I'll do another 5. Is that 2 I've got on there? Yes. It's very late now compared to when I first started this video because I had to do a radio interview in between doing this. My life's been a little bit wacky. And then I'll pick up another one of these guys and I'll pick up 3 of the blue. Slide those down. My dog is laying on some papers behind me. He just can't seem to keep himself away from me. All right. So now we're going to skip the 3, skip the 3 little blue beads and go up the 11, up the 5 silver, up all the ones in the middle, up the silver, up the 11, and then back up through this 8 up here. And in fact, you know what, if I turn this over and come out the back, it'll probably be a lot easier for you to see. So I'll come out, and I'm not coming through the hide, I'm just coming through the bead. And then I'll pull that. Now, you don't want to pull so tight that you make your little fringes really rigid, but you also want to make sure that you have enough tightness that it's not going to show thread and be too floppy. Okay, so I've come down this bead. Now I'm going to go up the next bead. Okay, and here where I've added just 1 11, on the next one I will add 2 11s. And we'll do everything coming down to a point. So, all right, so I'm not going to show you the rest of this. So what I'm going to do is this one I'll have 3 on it. This one I'll have 4 of these 11s at the top. Then I'll go 3, 2, 1 again. So I will come back when that's done. So I'm done all of my fringing on here, and I think it looks pretty cool. I think it looks very nice. One thing that is very apparent though is that coming out of size 8 beads and using tiny beads, the spacing between the fringes is a little more significant, but I don't actually mind that. I think that looks pretty cool. What I need to do now is I need to work my way up, and so I'm coming out of that bead there, and I need to get up in here somewhere and find the 2 center beads. And the way I do that is just sort of simply retrace my way back, going through each of the beads, even those top beads, down that one. Pull my tail out of the way, up that bead, through that bead. So we're actually skipping every second 15. So I'm going to just make my way through all of my beads until I get sort of to where the middle is, and I'll be right back. I'm coming out of this bead here, and it's more or less right across from the very center fringe that I have. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put put this together as though it was an earring, but I am going to take it apart, and then I'm going to show you how we would put a bail on here as well. If we wanted to do a bail, say like the one that I have on here, we could do that as well. So you might hear some background noise. It's somebody's watching TV right now. Okay, so I'm coming out of this bead here. I'm going to pick up the wire guardian, and it's got these 2 little places where the needle can go through on either side, like this little horseshoe shape. And then along the top here is this little channel where the thread goes in. But you know, in order to kind of keep the thread in there, I'm going to try putting a few of these little 15s on and see. I'm going to try 5. And do excuse my fingers, but these things are so tiny, it's just so hard to hold on to them. But I'll go through with my needle, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done here. All right, so I've gone in one side, out the other, and so the original one is coming out of that bead. Now I could go into the bead next to it and it'd still be fairly central, and I might just do that. I might just try that and see how that works. If it stays central and it looks good and looks even, then I would probably just leave it like that. That's how I would put this together as an earring, and I would reinforce that a good number of times, and then I would open up my ear wire and pop that on. If I were going to do these as a pendant, and I would probably use my 11s here, I'll get those guys out of the way, to make my bail. So now I am coming out of this one right here. Turn it over. So I'm coming out of this one right here, and I think I'm going to use both of these. So I'm coming out of this one, so my right, your left. I've picked up 2 beads, and I'm going to go over one into the left here. Now if that bead was absolutely completely dead center, which actually it sort of kind of is, I could actually come straight back down that bead too, you know. Let's just try that and see how that looks. So I'll just come straight back down that exact same bead. and try to get those two to sit side by side on top of it. Now what I need to do is I need to hook underneath the thread here. And then I'm going to go back up and into the right bead here. So the bead on the right hand side or your left. And now you've seen this before, I'm just going to do some herringbone. So I'll pick up 2 beads. Coming out of the right one, I'm going to go down into the left one. And I think I'm actually going to go into that bigger bead one more time just to really stabilize it, to reinforce everything. I'll catch that thread again, come through, back up that same bead, and then I'll go up these 2 beads on the right hand side. And now I'm just simply going to do basic herringbone. I have my last 2 beads on, and I'm going to put them there and come up 2. So there's a couple of options that you can do for attaching this. One is you can actually now just sew it directly to the hide. But what I like to do is I will come back up this gray bead, up through here, through there, back down, and I'll loop between sort of those 5 beads. So let me show you what that looks like. Or I can also just simply loop this to the pairs here, but I don't want to do that. I want to reinforce this a bit. So I'm going to bring my needle through just the gray bead for now, because it'll be too hard to get up into that column there. I've come through the gray bead, and then I'm going to go up through that first blue bead there on the column. Before I pull tight, I just want you to see the thread path. And then I'm going to pull on that. And then I'm going to go down the second bead and back down into the gray bead. There we go. And then this other side that has no thread on it, I will come back up that one. So you'll see me kind of go back and forth between those 2. So I'll come back up that bead now. Okay, I'm going into that bead, and I'll pull everything tight here in just a minute, just to kind of give that thread path there. Okay, pull up. Now I'm going to go back down into this bead. And I'm probably going to have to pull this apart because I just can't get it tight, but I need you to see this thread path. So I'm coming out of that. I'll go back down this one, back up through the gray bead, back up through the 2 on the front, and I'll just go around and around and around on that. So I'm going to do that off camera, but I just, yeah, I need to do it quite tight, and my fingers will be in the way the entire time. All right, I've got that pretty well secured now, and I'm coming out of the gray bead that's in here. It's underneath all of these, and I'm going to go, let me just see here. So I'm going to go down this gray bead next to it, and over to the next gray bead. I'm just going to move my thread along a little bit. And I'm going to come down here. And the way I hide my thread is you can tie a knot on the back. I don't tie it into my hide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to catch the thread on the back here, create a loop, and tie, and I'll do that again. Create a loop, and I'll tie. And then I'll just come up that bead, and I'm going to pull the knot up inside that. I And then I can go over and come down again if I want, but I think I'm just gonna cut it. I think we're more or less done. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what you can do with the stiffened felt. Looks very nice with the tanned moose hide on the back there. And all I would really have to do is either do some sort of a beaded necklace thing, or I can use what I did here was with this one I just used some rat tail, some nice silk rat tail, or you can put a chain, whatever you like. Okay, long video. Very long video, but thank you guys very much for hanging out with me, and yeah, I really enjoy when you send me some requests, so please keep those coming in. If I'm able to fulfill the requests, I most certainly will do so. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on coming up with some designs to share with you. At some point in time, I don't know what video I'll do it on, but I'm going to show you how to bezel that beautiful triangular stone. Tomorrow, I believe I'm going to be trying to do another video over the next couple of days, and we're going to do the bead mat. So this guy, seeing it that close up kind of makes me laugh, because when Lori saw this at the Frostbite event, she said, "My God, it looks so huge on your screen. I had no idea it was so tiny." So it gave her an idea of the area that we have to work in when we're filming jewelry. If you take a look at my hand, you know, we're in an area much smaller than that, and sometimes it's only this big that we have to actually film in, which is why it's hard sometimes to stay in frame. So, but we try. We all try. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it gave you some inspiration and some help for the questions that you asked about how to use the felted stiffened felt and how to do earrings off the stiffened felt. I'll probably do a few more earring projects with that in the future, but yeah, I really enjoyed having you along with me tonight and today, actually. It's been a long day. All right. See you in the next video. Oh, and if you like what I do, thumbs up always helps. Subscribe and keep those comments coming. I really like them. Thanks. Bye-bye.